Hey everybody, so today we have something pretty cool just to talk about. It's something that's been actually just recently announced. It's a portable desktop, but they're marketing it more as a console. It's called the Steam Deck, and it's been announced just recently. And what it is, it's more of a portable gaming desktop in a console form factor. And there's lots of cool things you can do with it. There's lots of cool little connections. You've probably seen pictures of it already. This is actually what it does look like, and it actually does kind of look more into kind of if you ever heard what Sega Game Gear is, it's back in the day there used to be something called Sega Game Gear. It used to hold like I think 6 or 8 batteries. It was ridiculous. I think it was 6 batteries, AA batteries, and it used to have a backlight. It was around the time of the Game Boy and everything like that. It used to kind of look like that. It also does look like more of the Wii U type of tablet, but it's just something pretty cool. It's a nice little form factor there. It's been really interesting to see how they can actually pull this off of, especially making such a very compact type of PC in a console form factor. There's lots of cool side triggers. There's the cool little joysticks, and there's little touchpads that actually do go on the side there. But for something like this, it will be $399 for the main 64 gigabyte eMMC model. Comes with a carrying case. There's also the 256 gigabyte NVMe SSD, which is $529, has a little bit of extra exclusive content, and there's a 512 NVMe SSD, which is $649. We'll actually go over what those or what's really the difference in the two storages in just a little bit, but let's at least go over the tech specs and see what you do get here. Alright, so here's the tech specs. It does come with a 7-inch screen. There's an AMD APU on it. It's based on the Zen 2 architecture. Zen 2 architecture is very similar to the recent Xbox Series S, and this is actually a good little comparison here. Digital Foundry does a good job actually explaining kind of a comparison why it is comparable more to the Series S, so you should go definitely check them out. They actually do a really good job of that, and then they do lots of great other things with gaming, especially in hardware, and talking about those things. If you're interested, go ahead and check them out. But here's just a list of kind of the specs that they actually did list, and then why it's pretty similar. And it looks like it's just more of a cut down version of a Series S. I would thought personally it would be like a portable PS4, which is what we're kind of hoping for. This is actually going to be based more on a desktop CPU, and we'll talk a little bit about that more. The rest of the specs are 16 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. You can either get the storage capacities, which we already talked about, and those are the biggest deal on the price points. They are saying here, if you do read it, it says all models use a socketed 2230 M.2 and is not intended for user replacement. So people that are really interested in maybe just buying the base model and upgrading them themselves, there's those Samsung Evos that are really good. That's not really going to be a thing to do because it's not going to fit that form factor. The Samsung Evos and the other M.2 drives are in basic, and most desktops and a lot of laptops are based on the M.2 2280 form factor, which isn't going to be exactly the same as the 2230 form factor. The 2280 form factor of M.2 is it looks more like a stick of gum. It's a little bit taller, and it's not quite the same. It's the one that you would see all the Samsung Evos and a lot of the desktop and laptops. The 2230 is more of the size of the Wi-Fi card, and it's going to be fitting in more of that form factor. There's not a whole lot of those that are circulating. There's not a whole lot of name brands. Usually they're more of brands that you're not too familiar with, and some that you are, but if you can find some, there's not a whole lot of bigger storage capacities, and availability is very, very limited, especially on name brands there. So it's not really what people have been thinking, that they can just buy base model and upgrade it. It's a little bit more complicated than that, and it even says on the website that it's not end user replaceable. What they're really trying to focus on is more of use micro SD storage, and again, it does come with that. And the rest of the specs, you can see, just has a D-pad. It has a regular D-pad. It has it has analog triggers there on the side. It has a nice 7-inch screen. Now the screen isn't going to be OLED. It's just going to be a regular. It looks like it's going to be just a regular LCD panel, most likely IPS, which is the basic in pretty much any type of tablet nowadays as a minimum spec. We would definitely like for OLED for those deep blacks that you can actually get. You can get true to life blacks, which the pixel actually shuts off, and you get a lot less motion blur and a lot less ghosting. And you'll also get more pixel response time from that, and you'll just see the image just looks clearer, especially if there's a lot of movement. And it is a 60 hertz screen. There's no 120 hertz or anything like that, just a basic LCD. Hopefully in the future they'll make an upgraded model with at least an OLED or maybe like a 120 hertz screen. The idea of all this is mainly to get the cost as low as they possibly can to compete with other competition in the market, especially at $399 for the base model is extremely significant if they can actually do that. But again, the rest of it is a 800p screen, so it's 16 by 10. So 16 by 10 is a little bit taller. A 16 by 9, which is a basic screen aspect ratio for almost every single television that's announced and released. 16 by 10 will help more for tablets because you want that little bit of height, so it's going to help navigate any type of UI or anything else that you're really using. It makes a big difference. It has two front-facing speakers. It has 2 speakers on it, USB-C charging, no wireless. It has a lot of big support for micro SD. We also see that the software, which is really interesting, and that's really what I want to talk about, is how they're going to basically do this. And it's going to be running Linux, actually. It's going to be running SteamOS 3.0, which is basically KDE Plasma, and that's just its own flavor of Linux. Obviously, if they were trying to run Windows, they would have licensing issues, and there's no way it could cost $399, especially if you're trying to run Windows natively. So another thing to really consider is about the NVMe drives and everything like that. It looks like whatever storage size you're going to get, that's what you're going to have to deal with. You would really suggest I would really suggest at least get one of the NVMe options, at least for the base OS that you're going to use for. I'd probably go at least with the 256, especially if it's not user replaceable. It saves you a bit of money. I don't think you really care about the 500 because what you're going to be doing is any type of game size, you're not putting your games on this thing. It looks like it's just made to run the operating system. eMMC memory really isn't that great, especially for speeds. And I mean, navigating a basic OS, maybe like SteamOS might be okay. It probably would be totally usable. But if you really want that performance difference, you definitely want to go with NVMe drive. It's quite a bit of difference from going from that. You could think of it as more of like a flash storage device, that maybe like a USB, running like an OS from a USB, or running an OS from like a NVMe SSD, which is still a lot higher in the speed rates and performance. Everything just feels better, and it's going to get that extra push from the processor to reach those high speeds and high read and writes and everything like that. That's definitely something I would definitely go that way, especially if it's not user replaceable. That's probably the main way that you want to go. What they're looking for too is mainly using that micro SD card slot for storing your games. And it's supposed to be a plug and play. It's supposed to be really simple, straightforward. You plug it in, it's supposed to just come up in your Steam library. At least that's the way they present it. It's supposed to be like that. So it's pretty, I mean, to put that much pressure really on that micro SD card to work. These aren't Nintendo DS games. These aren't basic games like Android games or anything like that. These are full AAA games that they're trying to do. Put it on those drives, trying to get a high read and write speed. You might not have absolutely the best experience on that from read and write. They're doing the best they can to at least optimize it for the micro SD cards, but to really rely on that is really going to be something else. And really, we need to see that until that comes out. So how the performance is from a micro SD card to run full AAA games on it. So you can actually use this as a desktop. And the dock that actually doesn't come with it. It does come separately. It does have its own ports and its own mouse and keyboard ports that you can plug in with USB. It also has a display port, HDMI, and they're actually marketing this also as a way just to use it as a desktop. So it's a pretty cool standalone device that you're supposed to be able to use. You can actually wipe the whole thing and run just Linux on it if you want to. You can wipe the whole thing again and run Windows on it. And you'll have a full type desktop there, which is really cool and really, really interesting. In a way, you can kind of transform it into something like that. And it's very just interesting, especially at the price point that they do for $399, at least for the base model, that you can do all this. Obviously, most people are just going to be using it as the device is intended, which is to use SteamOS to access your Steam library. Now, the only thing about that is it's saying you can access your Steam library through it. Now, the only thing is SteamOS runs on Linux, and Linux does have a compatibility layer that you need to play Windows games, and it's called Proton. And Proton helps you play. It's basically a type of emulation and a type of porting style that will help games that are supposed to run on Windows run on Linux. They did say that they were working with the developers as best they possibly can, and close with all the big studios, that they want to make sure this is going to be good and it's just going to work off the bat. Proton has come a long way. You can play a lot of games, but there are also games that just aren't compatible with Proton or just give a lot of issues. And you're not going to be wanting to sell a device that does have a lot of issues playing any of the games that you have on your Steam library. If you buy a game on Steam, you expect that to work on Steam. And if you have it with the SteamOS, unless they just make it not available, or maybe it says available with Proton, you can choose the type of games that you do play on Linux, and there's lots of games that do go through it. but a lot of the most AAA games just aren't just straight compatible with Linux unless you have Proton to help with that compatibility layer. But that remains to be seen. But will it just work? Like if I can just play any type of game I want on my Steam library on the actual handheld device that they are providing. So that's gonna be the most interesting thing. So anyways, guys, just a quick little talk about it, and then just how it kind of compares to a lot of other things. It's really cool actually, because it's going to be a portable desktop that's in your hands. It just in a console style it has the joysticks there, and it also has 2 touchpads, which is really cool. So it'll be interesting to see how they do integrate it and how it feels and how the battery life is going to be on it, especially that, because they say 2 to 8 hours is supposed to be the battery life, which is a very, very strange and very not very straightforward battery life sequence, because who knows what that means. But anyways, who knows what any type of battery life ever means. It does have a nice size battery, but again, if it's going to be drawing a lot of power, it's a desktop CPU, then it's going to be interesting as well to really see what it's going to be capable of. But anyways, guys, hope you guys enjoyed watching. Found this just a little bit informative, just cool, something cool to talk about, because we did find this pretty interesting, and maybe we'll see him for repair whenever it does come out, because I do know, we just checked the tech specs. It looks like the ordering and availability is Q2 of 2022 is when the release of this looks like it's going to come out. So it looks like they're probably going to be pushing it back as much as they can, but you can probably pre-order it. It's supposed to be December this year, so we'll see how that really goes and see the availability of chips and all these other things. Who knows what's going to really happen. But anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed watching. Subscribe for more content. We do lots of MacBook repairs, liquid spills, data recoveries, all that type of good stuff. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Bye.